"Don't spend your money on me," said the Apache woman. But the cowboy took her home. The sun hung low over the New Mexico frontier, casting long golden shadows across the dusty streets of the small trading town. The wind carried the faint scent of sagebrush, dry earth, and the occasional smoke from the chimneys of scattered homes. Cows and horses wandered near the edges of the town, and the faint clip-clop of hooves echoed from the main street. Among all this, a lone figure made his way into town. Jack was a cowboy who had spent months on the trail, moving herds from one ranch to another. His boots were worn from the miles he had walked, his hat bent from long days under the sun, and his clothes carried the dust and sweat of travel. But even in his tired state, there was a quiet confidence in the way he moved. Every step he took showed experience, not arrogance. Jack's eyes swept across the trading post as he approached. The place was busy, filled with traders, travelers, and locals. Barrels of flour and sugar lined the walls. Shelves were stacked with tin cups, tools, and bolts of cloth. The scent of fresh bread from the oven mixed with the earthy smell of dried herbs and the metallic tang of coins. People called out to each other, haggling over prices, exchanging stories, and laughing at small jokes. Jack's attention, however, was caught by a woman standing near the counter. She was not like the others in town. Her presence commanded quiet attention without her even trying. Ida, the Apache woman, was carefully examining a bundle of fabrics. Her dark hair was braided neatly down her back, and her eyes, sharp and thoughtful, moved quickly from item to item. There was a sense of calm in her movements, a rhythm that spoke of someone who knew her own strength and value. She approached the counter and placed a few items carefully before the trader, counting each coin she would spend with care. She was proud, and every gesture she made showed it. She was not there to ask for favors, nor did she seek attention. She wanted to pay for what she needed and leave with dignity and tact. Jack watched from a distance, intrigued. He had seen many people in towns like this, but Ida was different. He could not explain it, but there was something in the way she carried herself that drew him in. Perhaps it was her quiet strength, the way she seemed aware of everything around her yet moved gracefully, unbothered by the noise of the town. Or perhaps it was the way she refused to let anyone, even the trader, underestimate her. When Jack approached her, he offered to pay for one of the small items she had chosen, a simple gesture meant to show kindness. But Ida looked up at him, her eyes steady and unwavering. "Don't spend your money on me," she said firmly. Her voice was soft, but it carried authority. There was no anger, no fear, only a quiet, proud insistence that she could handle things on her own. Jack was taken aback. He had not expected such a response. Most people would have accepted help or at least smiled politely before declining. But her words were different. They challenged him without being rude. Instead of feeling offended, Jack felt a strange admiration. Here was a woman who knew her worth and would not let anyone, even a kind stranger, take that away from her. He realized that this was not pride in a negative sense, but a deep-rooted strength. He nodded, smiled, and simply said, "I understand." Then he turned and walked away, but his mind did not leave her. The day continued, and Jack stayed in town longer than he had planned. He watched Ida from a distance as she moved through the marketplace. She greeted some people politely, exchanged goods with others, and handled every interaction with care and respect. Every now and then, she would glance up and notice him watching, but she did not seem threatened or annoyed. Instead, she returned to her business as though she was entirely in control of her day. Jack admired her independence. He had spent his life on the open range, where every day was a challenge, where survival often required quick decisions and courage. But in Ida, he saw a different kind of courage, the courage to stand firm in one's own dignity and values, even in the face of curiosity, attention, or potential help from strangers. As evening approached, the light shifted from gold to soft orange. Jack decided to leave the trading post, but something kept him walking along the main street, hoping to catch another glimpse of her. He noticed how children paused to stare at her as she walked past, how other townspeople gave her space, respecting her without understanding why. There was a natural aura about her, a calm power that did not demand recognition but earned it anyway. Jack finally found himself walking behind her as she moved toward the edge of town. She carried her purchased goods carefully, balancing them as though they were as precious as her own pride. Jack considered speaking to her again, perhaps to offer help for the journey ahead, but he remembered her words. "Don't spend your money on me." He realized that helping her now would not be an act of kindness. It would be an act of disrespect if he ignored her wishes. So he stayed silent, keeping a careful distance, letting her maintain the space she clearly valued. Night fell and the town quieted. Fires flickered in the windows and the last travelers settled for the night. Jack found a spot outside the trading post to rest, leaning against a post, his thoughts still on Ida. He wondered about her life, about the path that had brought her to this town. He wondered what challenges she had faced, and how she had learned to carry herself with such poise and confidence. In that quiet moment, he made a silent promise. He would not interfere with her independence, but he would find a way to show that his intentions were honorable without taking away her dignity. The first part of their story ended not with action or drama, but with a quiet understanding. Jack had met someone who challenged his assumptions about people, about strength, and about trust. Ida had made it clear that she valued her independence above all, and Jack had respected it. Yet, both of them felt a connection, subtle but undeniable, like the first faint spark before a fire. As the stars appeared in the wide, open sky, Jack thought about the journey ahead. He did not know if fate would bring them together again, but he was certain of one thing: meeting Ida had changed him. He had encountered a spirit as wild and untamed as the frontier itself, and he was eager in his own way to learn from her strength. For now, he would wait, watch, and prepare himself for whatever chance encounter might come next. And somewhere, without words or plans, Ida had done the same. She had sensed a man who could respect her, and though she did not know it yet, their paths were destined to cross in ways neither of them could have imagined. The night was quiet, but for Jack, the world had grown larger. A simple meeting at a trading post had planted a seed, one that would grow through trials, journeys, and shared experiences. And though the first day ended with nothing more than exchanged glances and quiet admiration, it marked the beginning of a story that would test courage, respect, and the quiet power of human connection. The morning sun rose slowly over the town, painting the dusty streets with a warm golden light. Jack had stayed at the small inn on the edge of town, his thoughts still occupied by the Apache woman, Ida. He remembered her calm strength, her sharp eyes, and the way she had politely but firmly refused his help at the trading post. The memory stayed with him like a melody he couldn't forget. Something about her pride and independence made him want to learn more about her, not in a way to control or possess her, but to understand her, to respect her, and perhaps, in time, to share in a journey together. By mid-morning, Jack found himself walking through the town again. He had no particular business here, yet he could not resist the chance of seeing Ida again. Perhaps he was drawn to her courage, or maybe it was the quiet mystery that seemed to surround her. The townspeople had already begun their daily routines. Some were fetching water, others repairing fences, and a few children ran about laughing, their small voices echoing against the adobe walls. The air smelled faintly of sun-warmed earth and smoke from the chimneys, mingling with the scents of bread baking in the oven at the bakery. Jack noticed Ida near the edge of the marketplace, examining a row of pots and pans. She moved with the same care and calm precision as the day before. She picked up a pot, turned it in her hands, tapped it lightly, and then set it down with quiet satisfaction. Each gesture revealed her patience, her attention to detail, and her self-respect. Jack walked slowly closer, careful not to appear intrusive. He knew that rushing in or pressing his presence could make her uncomfortable. He wanted to show her that he could be trusted, that his intentions were genuine, without undermining her independence. When he reached the same area where she was standing, he nodded politely. "Good morning," he said, his voice warm but unassuming. Ida glanced at him, her eyes alert but calm. She acknowledged him with a subtle nod, not inviting conversation, but also not shutting him out. Jack understood that her world was carefully measured. She did not give trust easily, and he had to respect that. So he kept his distance and walked through the market, observing her from afar. As the day went on, Jack noticed how Ida interacted with the townspeople. She was polite but firm, always ensuring that the agreements she made were fair. When a merchant tried to charge her a little more than the usual price for dried meat, she simply smiled and corrected him, explaining the proper price. There was no anger in her voice, only confidence and clarity. Jack admired this. He had spent most of his life on the open range, where force or intimidation often settled disputes. Yet here was a woman who could command respect without raising her voice or showing aggression. Her strength was quiet but unmistakable. During midday, Jack paused at a small fountain to drink water and rest. From his place, he watched Ida gather her purchases and prepare to leave the marketplace. A sudden wind kicked up dust, causing some of the loose goods to tumble. Jack saw how she reacted quickly, moving to secure everything without panicking, handling the situation with care. He realized that her life must have required such alertness and quick thinking. She carried herself like someone who had learned to survive, not through force alone, but through intelligence, awareness, and strength of character. Feeling a desire to understand her better, Jack decided to take a cautious approach. Instead of speaking directly, he allowed himself to be seen but without pressuring her. He would help only if asked, support only if needed, and otherwise simply observe and learn. It was a delicate balance, and one that required patience, something Jack was not always known for, but something he recognized as necessary now. The day passed slowly, with small encounters that each added another layer to their understanding of each other. Jack offered her a seat when she paused to rest by a wooden bench near the edge of town. Ida accepted, but only for a moment, careful not to appear dependent. They did not speak much at first. Instead, they shared quiet acknowledgement. Sometimes, communication did not require words. Jack could see in her eyes the same caution, curiosity, and intelligence that had captivated him the day before. He began to understand that earning her trust would not be simple or immediate. It would require consistency, patience, and respect. As afternoon approached, Jack and Ida both found themselves walking toward the outskirts of town. Jack noticed she carried a small bundle of supplies, enough for a journey or to live independently for a while. He thought about offering help again, but remembered her words, "Don't spend your money on me." He realized that helping her now would not demonstrate kindness. It could be perceived as undermining her independence. Instead, he chose to walk nearby, giving her space, but remaining present in case she truly needed assistance. Along the path, Jack observed how Ida moved with careful awareness of her surroundings. She scanned the area constantly, noting the positions of people, animals, and potential hazards. Jack admired her instinctive alertness. It was clear that she had learned to rely on herself, that she had faced challenges before, and that survival depended on her vigilance. At the same time, he recognized a subtle softness in her, a side that was not visible to everyone. It was in the way she paused to watch a bird, how she carefully adjusted her bundle, or the small smile she allowed herself when a child waved from the distance. Jack understood that strength and gentleness could exist together, and Ida embodied both. The day began to fade into evening, and the sky turned shades of orange and pink. Jack realized that he had spent hours near Ida without fully realizing it. Their quiet companionship had built an unspoken connection, though she remained cautious. He sensed that she had noticed his presence too. It was not intrusive, and it did not demand anything from her. Jack hoped that in time, she would recognize that his intentions were sincere, that he sought neither control nor charity, but simply a chance to walk beside her, even if only for a moment. As the town prepared for nightfall, Ida paused near a small stream running through the outskirts. She knelt to fill a container with water, her movements deliberate and precise. Jack watched from a distance, appreciating not only her skill but her independence. He understood that trust could not be forced. It had to be earned through consistent actions and respect for boundaries. For the first time, Jack felt that he might be willing to wait, to let the connection grow naturally without rushing or imposing himself. A gentle wind rustled through the trees as the sun dipped below the horizon, and Jack noticed a subtle change in Ida. She seemed slightly more relaxed, her shoulders no longer as tense, her movements less guarded. It was a small sign, but significant. It suggested that she had begun to acknowledge his presence as harmless, perhaps even welcome. He did not approach her yet. Instead, he observed quietly, understanding that patience now was more valuable than words or gestures. Night fell over the frontier town. Stars appeared in the clear sky, and the air cooled, carrying the faint smell of earth and distant fires. Jack found a quiet spot nearby to sit, reflecting on the day's events. He realized that the challenge was not to impress or overwhelm Ida, but to demonstrate through actions and respect that he could be trusted. Her pride and independence were not obstacles. They were part of what made her remarkable. Jack admired her more with every passing hour, and he understood that his feelings were not fleeting curiosity or simple attraction. They were rooted in a deep appreciation for her character, her strength, and her spirit. Meanwhile, Ida returned to the town quietly, her purchases secured, her dignity intact. She sensed that someone had been following, not threatening but present, careful to respect her space. There was a cautious curiosity in her heart, a recognition that this man, this cowboy, was different from others she had encountered. He did not seek to dominate, nor to impose. He merely existed nearby, offering silent assurance without intrusion. That was rare in her world, and it did not go unnoticed. By the end of the evening, both Jack and Ida had begun a quiet dance of understanding, patience, and mutual respect. Each knew that the connection was fragile, easily broken, but also full of potential. Jack realized that true connection required time, actions, and respect. Ida recognized that there was someone who might walk beside her without diminishing her independence. Neither spoke much, yet both felt the beginnings of trust, a spark of understanding that might grow into something deeper if nurtured carefully. The day ended not with dramatic action, but with a sense of anticipation. The foundation for a meaningful bond had been laid, built on observation, respect, and the quiet acknowledgement of strength. Jack knew that earning Ida's trust would take time, patience, and persistence. Ida knew that she had met someone who might be worth letting into her careful, guarded world. And as the stars shone over the desert, both of them felt that the story had only just begun, that the journey ahead would test courage, loyalty, and the power of understanding another human being. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the horizon, spilling a warm, golden light across the wide plains outside the town. Jack had spent the night thinking about Ida, her quiet strength, and the way she had captured his attention without even trying. He knew that winning her trust would not be easy. But as he prepared his horse and checked his gear, he felt certain of one thing: he could not leave her to face the dangers of the frontier alone. The world they lived in was not kind. Threats were everywhere: bandits, wild animals, and the harshness of the land itself. He had to act not to control her, but to protect her, to show her that trust could exist without compromising pride. Ida, meanwhile, had left the town at first light. She carried her bundle carefully, balanced and secure. Her eyes scanned the landscape constantly, alert to every sound, every movement. She knew the trails well, yet she was aware that the dangers of the frontier were unpredictable. There had been rumors of bandits in the region, travelers gone missing, and raiders taking advantage of those who moved alone. Ida trusted herself to navigate carefully, but she also knew that the world was harsher than one person could always handle. Jack saw her from a distance as he rode along the trail. She had moved cautiously but confidently, making her way toward the edge of the hills beyond the town. Jack slowed his horse, letting her remain unaware of his presence at first. He wanted to respect her independence, but he could not ignore the risk she faced. He had learned long ago that courage alone sometimes was not enough to survive. His instinct to protect her was not about ownership or control. It was about respect, about ensuring that a capable, strong woman like Ida would not face unnecessary danger alone. As Ida moved along the dusty path, Jack followed at a discreet distance. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the careful movements she made to avoid rattling her bundle or leaving tracks that could be followed. It was clear that she had faced challenges before and had learned to navigate the land with precision and caution. Jack admired her deeply, not only for her skill but for the quiet dignity she carried. She was fearless, not in a reckless way, but in a measured, thoughtful way that spoke of someone who had survived and thrived in a world that demanded strength and wisdom. The journey was long, and the afternoon sun climbed high in the sky. Dust swirled around Ida's feet, and the heat pressed down on the land. Jack stayed a careful distance behind, keeping his presence discreet but offering an invisible shield. He understood that help would only be appreciated if it was needed, not imposed. Every now and then he would glance up to check for signs of danger: loose rocks, sudden shadows, the distant glint of sunlight on metal. He knew the world was unpredictable, and his experience on the trail had taught him that preparation and vigilance were key to survival. After several hours, a sudden rustling in the bushes ahead made both of them tense. Jack saw movement, subtle but deliberate, and he realized immediately that trouble had arrived. Bandits. A small group armed and ready to ambush travelers. Jack's heart raced, but his mind was calm. He knew that Ida had the skill to defend herself, but he also knew that numbers and surprise could overwhelm anyone. He acted quickly, pulling his horse slightly to the side, keeping it hidden behind a hillock, and observing the situation carefully. Ida, sensing danger, slowed her pace and scanned the area. Her instincts were sharp, honed by years of living in a world where attention to detail meant survival. She noticed the shadows first, the glint of metal, the subtle movement of leaves. Her hand instinctively brushed the small knife she kept at her belt. She was ready, but she knew that one person against several bandits would be dangerous. Her mind raced, calculating escape routes, considering options, and preparing for a confrontation if necessary. Jack moved silently closer, his presence still unseen by Ida. He had faced similar situations before on the trail. Alone or with others, he had survived ambushes, storms, and attacks. But this time, the stakes were different. It was not just about his survival. It was about ensuring that Ida, proud and strong, would not be harmed. He did not announce himself. Instead, he waited for the right moment, calculating how to intervene without taking away her agency. The bandits emerged, a small group of 3 men, laughing and calling out to each other. They had seen Ida from a distance and assumed she was an easy target. They did not know her, nor did they understand the quiet fire in her eyes. She stood her ground for a moment, her knife ready, her body tense, yet she did not panic. Her confidence was clear. She could fight if needed, but she was also aware that numbers were against her. Jack made his move. With swift precision, he rode in, his horse kicking up dust, his voice loud and commanding. The bandits turned in surprise, not expecting an armed cowboy to intervene. Jack's presence shifted the balance immediately. He did not attack recklessly. Instead, he positioned himself strategically, creating a barrier between Ida and the men. The bandits hesitated, unsure how to react. Jack's eyes were sharp, his voice firm but controlled. "Back off," he called, his tone leaving no room for argument. The men exchanged nervous glances, realizing that the situation was not as easy as they had assumed. Jack's calm authority, combined with his readiness to act, made them reconsider. One of them made a move, but Jack reacted swiftly, blocking the path and forcing them to retreat. The encounter lasted only moments, but it was enough. The bandits, sensing they were outmatched and unwilling to risk a fight, scattered into the brush, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared. Ida breathed a sigh of relief but did not relax completely. She turned to Jack, her eyes sharp, assessing yet not angry. "I did not ask for help," she said quietly. Her tone was calm, not accusatory, but it carried her usual pride. Jack nodded, understanding perfectly. "I know," he replied. "But I could not let them harm you." There was no arrogance in his voice, no suggestion that she was incapable. Just a statement of fact, a quiet respect for her strength and a recognition of the danger she had faced. The encounter had changed something between them. Ida realized that Jack's presence was not a threat to her independence, but a source of support when circumstances became too dangerous for one person to handle alone. Jack realized that helping Ida did not diminish her strength, it honored it. She had chosen her path, moved with care, and faced danger with courage. He had simply acted to protect, not to control. The afternoon sun began to sink toward the horizon as they continued their journey together, now walking in a cautious but unspoken partnership. They spoke little, but their understanding grew. Ida shared her knowledge of the land, pointing out safe places to rest, areas where water could be found, and signs of potential danger. Jack listened carefully, absorbing every detail. He realized that their journey was not only about safety, but about mutual respect, about learning from one another, and about recognizing the value of shared experience. By the time they reached a small clearing suitable for resting, both were exhausted but unharmed. Ida set down her bundle, her movements careful but deliberate. Jack did the same, making sure the space was safe, that no surprises awaited them. They sat a short distance apart, not speaking much, yet comfortable in each other's presence. The quiet companionship was a new experience for both of them. Jack had traveled alone for years, and Ida had survived with vigilance and independence. But together, in this moment, they began to understand the value of partnership, not dependence, but a shared strength that respected each individual's dignity. As the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky with deep shades of orange and purple, Ida allowed herself a small smile. She recognized that Jack was different from others she had encountered. He did not seek to dominate or control, nor did he attempt to impose his will. He simply walked beside her when needed, acted when danger appeared, and respected her independence at all other times. For the first time in a long while, she felt a quiet sense of safety, not because she was powerless, but because someone she could trust was willing to stand with her. Night fell fully over the plains, and the stars appeared in the clear sky. The air cooled, carrying the scent of sage and distant campfires. Jack built a small fire, careful to keep it controlled, and Ida prepared a simple meal from her supplies. They ate in silence, not awkwardly, but with a shared understanding. No words were necessary to express trust, respect, or appreciation. Their journey had begun, not with grand declarations, but with careful, deliberate action and the recognition of one another's strength. The first day of their shared journey had ended, but both knew it was only the beginning. They would face many challenges ahead: rough terrain, harsh weather, and threats from those who roamed the frontier. Yet in this moment, they had discovered something essential, a bond built on respect, courage, and understanding. Jack had shown that protection did not equal control. Ida had shown that independence could coexist with trust. And together, they had begun a path that would test their courage, their patience, and the strength of their connection. As they settled near the fire, Jack looked at Ida and saw not just a woman of pride and independence, but a partner in the journey ahead. Ida looked at Jack and saw not just a cowboy, but someone who respected her enough to walk beside her rather than ahead or behind. In the quiet of the desert night, under the vast sky filled with stars, the unspoken promise between them was clear. They would face whatever came together, each respecting the other's strength, each ready to act when needed, and each beginning to understand the true meaning of trust. The following morning, the air was crisp and cool, as the first rays of sunlight stretched across the plains. Jack and Ida had made camp near a small grove of trees that offered shade, water, and a measure of safety. The night had been quiet, filled only with the gentle crackle of their fire and the distant calls of wildlife. Both of them were accustomed to life on the frontier, but something about sharing the space had changed the rhythm of their journey. It was no longer just about survival. It was about learning, understanding, and beginning to trust one another more deeply. Ida moved with her usual precision, gathering firewood and tending to their small camp. Her hands were steady, her movements efficient, but there was a subtle softness to her actions that Jack noticed for the first time. She smiled quietly at a bird hopping along a branch, humming a soft, almost forgotten tune. Jack observed her, realizing that strength and gentleness could coexist in a person, and that her quiet grace made her even more remarkable. He wanted to speak to ask about her life, but he knew patience was necessary. Trust was earned slowly, not forced by words. Jack broke the silence first in a careful and respectful way. "You're very skilled," he said, nodding toward her hands as she worked. "You've learned a lot from living out here." Ida looked up, meeting his gaze. Her eyes held intelligence, caution, and just a hint of curiosity. "I've had too," she replied simply. "The land teaches you and mistakes are costly." Her voice was calm, steady, and unyielding. Jack smiled, understanding the weight behind her words. Life on the frontier was never easy, and he knew she had survived challenges most people could never imagine. The morning passed with small tasks, both of them moving carefully but together. Jack tended to the horses, checking their water and feed, while Ida prepared simple food and organized their supplies. As they worked side by side, they began to share stories, not long tales, but fragments of their lives that revealed character and experience. Ida spoke of the land she had grown up on, of her family, and the lessons they had taught her. Jack shared stories from his life on the trail, the long drives, the storms, and the quiet moments under wide-open skies. Each story built understanding, each shared memory created a bond that neither could deny. By midday, the sun was high, beating down on the plains. Jack noticed that Ida was sweating, yet she did not complain. Her endurance was impressive, but Jack also recognized that even the strongest needed support at times. He offered her water, which she accepted with a small nod of thanks. "You are thoughtful," she said quietly, acknowledging his gesture without diminishing her independence. Jack realized that small acts of care mattered more than words. His role was not to take control, but to stand beside her, ready when needed and respectful at all other times. As they continued their journey, they encountered a narrow canyon. The trail was rocky and uneven, and a sudden drop on one side made passage dangerous. Ida moved carefully, her eyes scanning each step, her hands steady. Jack followed behind, ready to offer help if needed, but careful not to intrude. "This path is tricky," he said softly. Ida glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. "I can manage," she replied, her voice confident but not dismissive. Jack nodded, respecting her skills while remaining alert. The canyon required focus and teamwork. At one point, Ida's bundle shifted and a small rock rolled toward the edge. Jack caught it swiftly, ensuring it did not create a hazard. "Thank you," she said, her tone genuine. It was one of the first moments when gratitude was expressed freely, not out of obligation, but as recognition of mutual support. They continued carefully, navigating the canyon with quiet communication, gestures, and awareness. By the time they emerged, their connection had strengthened, built on actions rather than words, trust rather than demands. That evening they found a safe place to camp near a shallow stream. The water was clear and cool, reflecting the fading light of the sunset. Ida knelt to wash her hands and face, and Jack did the same. For a moment they worked side by side in silence, the only sounds the gentle trickle of water and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. There was a sense of peace in the moment, a rare quiet that allowed reflection. Jack admired Ida's focus and calm, and Ida recognized Jack's steady presence as a source of security. As night fell, they gathered around a small fire. Jack roasted a few pieces of dried meat, and Ida prepared herbs to season it. They ate slowly, the silence filled with mutual respect and understanding. Jack felt a new level of connection, realizing that their journey was no longer just about reaching a destination safely, but about learning from one another, sharing moments, and building a relationship based on trust and equality. Ida, too, felt a growing sense of comfort. She had met many people in her life, but few had demonstrated patience, respect, and genuine care without seeking control. Jack's quiet presence allowed her to see that trust could exist without surrendering independence. After the meal, they sat near the fire, speaking softly. Jack asked about her family, not prying, but genuinely curious. Ida shared stories of her childhood, of her parents teaching her to respect the land, and of the lessons she had learned from hardship. She spoke of moments of joy, small victories, and the importance of perseverance. Jack listened intently, realizing that these stories revealed her strength, resilience, and wisdom. He began to understand that her independence was not stubbornness, but a survival skill, a way to navigate a world that was often harsh and unforgiving. In turn, Jack shared moments from his own life. He spoke of long drives across endless plains, of storms that tested his endurance, and of nights spent under the stars, reflecting on life. Ida listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions, showing genuine interest. The exchange was more than conversation. It was a meeting of minds, an exploration of values, courage, and resilience. Each story brought them closer, revealing shared qualities of determination, respect for the land, and an understanding of what it meant to survive with dignity. As the fire burned low, Ida spoke of her fears, not about Jack, but about the dangers of the world. She admitted that traveling alone could be frightening, that unpredictability was constant, and that one had to rely on skills, intuition, and sometimes the kindness of strangers. Jack nodded, understanding fully. "You're not alone," he said simply. "We look out for each other." There was no attempt to dominate or command. His words were a promise, a recognition that trust and partnership could exist without sacrificing independence. The night deepened, and the stars shone brilliantly above them. They lay near the fire, watching the constellations, sharing quiet thoughts. Ida began to reveal her dreams, not of wealth or comfort, but of peace, safety, and a life where her skills and independence were respected. Jack shared his own hopes, dreams shaped by experience, hardship, and the desire for meaningful connection. In those quiet hours, a bond formed that was not based on romance alone, but on mutual understanding, shared values, and the recognition of each other's strengths. By the time they settled for sleep, a subtle but profound shift had taken place. Ida had begun to see Jack not just as a protector or companion, but as someone worthy of her trust. Jack had learned that strength did not mean overpowering, but walking beside, supporting, and respecting. Their journey was still far from over, but the foundation for a deeper connection had been laid. Both realized that the path ahead would test courage, patience, and understanding, but together they could face it. As they drifted off to sleep under the wide, open sky, the quiet desert around them felt alive with possibility. The firelight flickered softly, casting shadows that danced like memories and promises. Jack and Aida had discovered a new rhythm, one built on shared experience, mutual respect, and growing trust. Their bond was not yet complete, but it was strong, steady, and resilient, like the land itself. And in that moment they both knew that no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them together, honoring each other's strength, courage, and independence. The next morning the sun rose slowly, casting a soft, golden light across the plains. Jack and Aida had traveled for several days now, their journey filled with challenges, quiet moments, and shared experiences. They had faced danger together, navigated the rough land, and learned to trust one another deeply. The bond between them had grown, not in loud declarations or dramatic gestures, but through steady, reliable actions, patience, and respect. Each day had brought them closer, and now the thought of reaching a safe place, a home, a ranch, carried a new meaning for both of them. Aida walked ahead on the trail, her bundle balanced carefully, her eyes scanning the path as always. Jack followed a few steps behind, his horse moving steadily, eyes alert to any danger. He did not need to speak. Their silence was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. Aida had begun to recognize that Jack's presence was not a threat to her independence, but a support she could rely on when needed. He did not demand her attention, her gratitude, or her compliance. He simply walked beside her, ready to act if danger arose and respectful when it did not. As they neared the outskirts of a small ranch, the land opened into gentle rolling hills, green pastures, and scattered wooden fences. The scent of hay, fresh water, and horses greeted them, a stark contrast to the dry plains they had traversed. Jack slowed his horse, letting Aida take in the view first. She paused, her eyes scanning the fences, the small barn, and the cozy house at the center. There was a sense of warmth in the air, a feeling of safety that the trail had not offered. Jack dismounted and approached Aida with care. "This is where I live," he said softly. "You're welcome to rest here as long as you need. No expectations, just safety and a place to recover from the journey." His voice was calm, steady, and sincere. Aida looked at him, her dark eyes studying his expression, reading the honesty and respect in his words. She did not speak immediately, only nodded slightly, her pride and independence still intact. But in that moment, a quiet understanding passed between them. He was not offering charity, he was offering partnership and trust. As they walked toward the house, Jack led the horses to the barn, checking the stalls and water troughs. Aida followed, curious but careful, observing the land, the animals, and the simple, practical life Jack had built. She asked questions about the barn, the horses, and the daily routines. Jack answered patiently, showing her each task, explaining without condescension, and including her as a partner rather than a visitor. Aida appreciated this. She had traveled through many towns, met countless people, and yet few had treated her with such genuine respect and equality. The afternoon passed as they prepared the ranch together. Aida tended to the smaller tasks, feeding the animals, cleaning the stalls, organizing supplies, while Jack handled heavier work. They moved in harmony, each aware of the other's strengths, each learning from the other. Conversation was quiet but meaningful. Aida shared more about her life, about her people, and the lessons she had learned from the land and her family. Jack listened intently, asking questions with curiosity and respect. He began to understand the depth of her character, her wisdom, and her resilience. By evening, the chores were done, and the ranch was peaceful. Jack built a small fire outside, and they sat together nearby, enjoying the warmth and quiet. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, slowly fading to deep purple as the stars began to appear. Aida finally allowed herself to relax completely, feeling safe in a way she had not in a long time. She realized that this place, this cowboy, and this moment offered something she had not expected, a chance to rest without losing her independence, a partnership built on mutual respect rather than obligation. Jack looked at her quietly, noticing the small, contented smile that appeared on her face. He did not speak immediately, understanding that some moments were better shared in silence. Then he said softly, "You've handled yourself with courage through everything we've faced. I respect that more than words can say. Ida met his gaze, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "And you've shown that strength can come with patience and respect," she replied. Their exchange was simple, yet it carried the weight of everything they had experienced together. The night deepened, and they moved inside the house to rest. Jack showed Ida the guest room, simple but comfortable, and she nodded in appreciation. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice sincere. "Not for the room, but for letting me arrive on my own terms." Jack smiled, understanding perfectly. "You earned it," he said simply. "No one gives you anything you haven't earned yourself." It was not a statement of pride, but of recognition. Ida felt the truth in his words, a validation of her life, her choices, and her strength. In the days that followed, Ida began to settle into the rhythm of life at the ranch. She worked alongside Jack, learning the routines, caring for the animals, and exploring the land. They shared meals, stories, and quiet moments of reflection. The bond between them grew deeper, shaped by shared responsibility, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that neither would diminish the other's strength or independence. Jack never demanded, and Ida never felt the need to give more than she chose. In this balance, they found something rare: trust and connection built on equality. One afternoon, while riding along a gentle hill, Ida spoke quietly. "I never thought I would find someone who respects me without trying to control me," she said. Jack smiled, understanding the significance of her words. "Respect is the first step to trust," he replied. "Everything else comes naturally." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. It was a moment of clarity for both of them, a recognition that their journey together had been about more than survival. It had been about understanding, patience, and mutual growth. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the rolling fields, they returned to the ranch, their horses moving steadily. Jack noticed how Ida carried herself with the same pride and independence she had from the beginning, yet now there was a softness, a quiet confidence that came from knowing she could trust someone without losing herself. He realized that the greatest gift he could give her was not protection alone, but respect, partnership, and acknowledgement of her strength. That evening they sat near the fire once more, the sky dark and filled with stars. Jack spoke about his hopes for the future, not about wealth or fame, but about a life filled with purpose, honesty, and meaningful connection. Ida shared her own dreams about peace, respect, and the freedom to live fully while honoring her independence. Together, they envisioned a life where both could thrive, supporting one another without compromise or control. As the night grew quiet, Ida finally allowed herself to express gratitude in a way she had not before. "You've brought me here safely, but more than that, you've shown me that trust and partnership are possible," she said softly. Jack reached out, gently taking her hand. "And you've shown me that true strength comes from courage, patience, and dignity," he replied. The gesture was simple, respectful, and full of meaning. It was the culmination of everything they had experienced together: challenges, trust, and understanding. In the days and weeks that followed, life at the ranch became their shared routine. Jack and Ida worked together, laughed together, and supported one another through every task. Their connection grew not through grand gestures, but through the steady rhythm of daily life, the shared responsibilities, and the quiet moments of mutual recognition. They had faced the dangers of the frontier, learned to rely on one another, and discovered a bond that was both strong and gentle, rooted in respect, trust, and equality. The story of Jack and Ida concluded not with fanfare or dramatic declarations, but with the quiet certainty of mutual respect and understanding. Ida had arrived at the ranch with pride and independence intact, and Jack had offered partnership without diminishing her strength. Together, they had faced challenges, navigated danger, and built trust through consistent actions and shared experiences. The frontier, once a place of uncertainty and peril, had become a home, a place where courage, dignity, and respect created the foundation for a meaningful connection. As the sun rose each morning over the ranch, painting the hills in warm gold, both Jack and Ida felt the quiet joy of companionship. They were not defined by what they had lost or endured, but by the choices they made, the respect they gave one another, and the courage to face life together. In the vast openness of the plains, among the rolling hills and open skies, they had found something rare: a partnership built on trust, equality, and mutual admiration. The story ended not with a single moment, but with the enduring rhythm of shared life. Jack and Ida had shown that true connection is not about dominance or wealth, but about respect, patience, and understanding. Their journey together had transformed both of them, revealing that courage is not only about facing danger, but about opening oneself to trust, about honoring strength without diminishing it, and about walking together through life as equals. And so, in the quiet beauty of the frontier, under the endless sky filled with stars, Jack and Ida began a new chapter. It was a life of work, of care, and of respect. It was a life built not on spending money or asserting control, but on genuine understanding and partnership. And in that life, both found peace, safety, and the quiet joy of being seen, respected, and trusted for who they truly were.